Your job as a designer is to capture an idea and express it visually in an object. Contrast is a great way to do that. Contrast is when you create an opposing relationship between objects or features in your design. Using these techniques, you can guide your user's eye and help them understand where the important functional and aesthetic features are on the design. So there are a few ways that you can create contrast. One way that's not talked about as much is conceptual contrast. Conceptual contrast is when you take two seemingly different ideas and combine them. One example of this would be the BMW Gina concept. Rather than taking a car and sculpting it from formed metal sheets, which is the traditional method, the designers at BMW spread a thin layer of fabric over a frame. So when you combine these two completely different ideas of fabric plus car, it creates a very memorable and visually striking aesthetic and function. Another example is combining this very scientific aesthetic with a luxury spirits brand. This works because science is all about precision and experimentation, and the same is true with creating high-quality liquors. You can also keep it fairly simple. You don't need to make it super complicated or abstract. You can combine the look and feel of a smooth stone with a cell phone. A phone needs to feel good in the hand, and there's nothing more comfortable than the feel of a well-worn stone. So combining these two seemingly opposing things works well for that reason. You can also create contrast through scale. Things that are bigger grab more attention and are perceived as more important. They can also create relationships. So right now, I'm designing a game controller. If I make one side of the controller really big and bulky like this, and then the other side smaller, it communicates to the user that this big piece is probably the part that you grab with your hand. This little piece is maybe less important. The buttons on the little piece maybe are not used as often in typical gameplay, perhaps. Or, if I have an array of 3 buttons here and I make this one much larger, suddenly it's clear that the bigger one is probably the more important one. Maybe it's something that you need to press more often or whatever else. Another way to create contrast is with materials and finishes. A glossy surface against a matte surface creates a delineation between the two pieces. This external hard drive designed by Fuse Project for Western Digital is viewed as 2 objects rather than one. Another way to do it is with varying forms or shapes. So you could have a super organic shape juxtaposed against a very geometric one. This Michael Graves tea kettle for Alessi is an excellent example of this. You have this really geometric, almost cold-looking metal, starkly contrasted with this little cartoony-looking bird and the blobby pastel-colored handle. The organic, friendly areas of the design are the parts that are safe to touch. The sharp metal ones are the parts of the design that will probably be dangerous to touch when you're heating up water in the kettle. So this does 2 things. First, it communicates the function. Second, it creates a visual icon. Notice how different the character of this design would be without the contrast in these forms. If I just make this handle straight and black and replace this bird with a little circle, suddenly the design is significantly less interesting. Lastly, you can do it with color. So if I have my little gadget here, let's just say it's a MIDI controller or something, and I have 3 buttons, I can make one of them stand out by simply making it a bright color. Now this one is viewed as the more important touch point or feature because it's higher contrast. When all of these techniques are used in tandem, they can bring hierarchy and visual interest to your designs. Not every object has to have strong contrast. Sometimes it makes sense to design something that is very balanced and understated. But I usually like to start with extreme contrast and then dial it back, especially when I want to make a strong visual statement. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and let me know what kind of content you'd like me to focus on next.